Welcome to the Dear Son Podcast, episode number 6. I am on a high from the last episode and the episode before that, so my energy is up. And today, I have my first in-house guest, Mr. Javan Blackston. Now let's run down your titles. Cybersecurity systems engineer, small business owner. What else we got? We got master barber, correct?
Yep.
Husband, father, brother,
Advocate.
Yeah. Let's hear more about that.
Um,
What's important to you?
making sure that we or I guess impart in people.
Sure.
I'm a people person.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people say that, but you know, when I say it, I mean, whatever I can give, especially if it's an experience,
Sure.
I try to impart that in someone else, a young person,
Right.
somebody I might be dealing with at work, somebody I might be cutting their hair.
Right.
You know, as a barber, you become sort of a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And I just always find myself imparting stuff that I've lived through or been through with respect to whatever it may be, like a referral,
Sure.
you know, for, you know, just anything, some work. I try to advocate for especially young men now these days,
Yeah.
because they don't have the same experiences that we kind of grew up. I was born in the 70s. I was a preteen in the 80s. I was a teenager in the 90s.
Yeah.
You know, and now I'm 51. Oh, man. A lot of people get to that 50 mark, like all of my friends. We
Yeah.
turned 50 last year and they had all these big shindigs, and then something happens in you and you start acting the age that you see other people acting at that age.
Right.
And I try not to do that, just mainly for my boys, because I gotta know and be in the know to
Sure.
be able to communicate with them. That's a real important thing for me. I'm on social media so that I can check up on them.
Yeah. You kind of led into a little bit of your fatherhood story. Let's talk about that. What was your home environment growing up? Was your father in the home? Do you have brothers and sisters? What was it? Let's start there with your fatherhood story.
Okay, so I grew up in a blended family.
Okay.
My mom and dad, their situation wasn't pleasant. There's 8 million stories in Nigga City.
Sure.
But you know, as a result of whatever they had going on, my mom, she kind of kept me away from my father.
Okay.
It wasn't pleasant. And what she wanted to do is make sure she had a stable relationship and have a positive male figure. Not to say that my father was a negative male figure, but I think, you know, with emotions and things of that nature, it affected my relationship. Her emotions affected my relationship
Sure.
with my biological. Fast forward, maybe, you know, I'm 4. She gets married to my stepfather, who is amazing. And, you know, I owe a lot of who I am
Sure.
and how I am to him. And, you know, I grew up with my younger brother. And at some point in my life, my stepfather, you know, out of the love that he had for me, he wanted me to, my mom gave me her maiden name. She
Okay.
didn't give me my biological father's last name. And I guess he felt that he wanted me to feel, you know, like I was
Yeah.
a part. So he asked me, did I want to change my last name? And I thought about it. I was probably about 15 or 16 years old. And I decided no. He didn't feel no type of way. He still loved me the same. You know, I had a really, really good relationship with my stepfather. And I don't really use step all the time.
I'm not a fan of the step title either. We have a blended family, and I've never even considered my oldest to be step. But I want to go back to something you said. You didn't want to take on the last name. Do you remember the rationale at that point? What was it about the ask, or did it just not feel right?
So my mom's side, she had a big family.
Okay.
And I will elaborate later, but the last name Blackston meant something from
Gotcha.
where my mom is from, a little small town in North Carolina. And at that point, I had interacted with my cousins and extended family under my stepfather, but I also was interacting with my mom's sister and her brothers. My mom's youngest brother, I'm named after.
Okay.
Sort of. His middle name is my first name.
Gotcha.
So
it's more about representing your family. Wasn't any?
Yeah, it wasn't
no
I didn't
ill will
feel
or
any
anything
type
like
of
that?
way. I
Okay.
wasn't, he wasn't trying to force me.
Sure.
He wasn't upset. He just wanted to make sure I knew that he felt like he loved me, in that moment, for him to say something like that. I felt proud.
Yeah.
And he's passed away, and when you have a loved one that you're close to pass away, you live, and I keep him alive by the
Sure.
lessons that he taught me, and I try to pass those same lessons to my sons.
What was one of the biggest lessons or the most memorable lessons that you got from your father? And I want to make sure you don't mind if I refer to him as your father.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
you can.
Okay.
You can. And I guess it was a respect. And I can say this for a fact that there's only a few times in my life, in my young age, pre being an adult, that I actually got in trouble. Like where,
Really?
people grow up with whoopings and all
Really?
that. My father was a disciplinarian, and he didn't really yell or scream and shout. He just, he took care of business, and he had to do what he had to do. And the one time that I can remember in life to this day where I got a spanking or a whooping is I was in maybe elementary, and the teacher said something to me. I took my boot off and I threw it at the teacher.
My mama told me to tell you.
She called my mom, who called my father. They both worked shifts.
Yeah.
He was a correctional officer. My mom worked at the hospital, and she was working and he was off. He came up to that school and tore me a new one with his work belt. And I'm not talking about like from Macy's.
Yeah.
I'm talking about with a correctional office belt.
A true correction.
True belt. And that was the only time that he had ever disciplined me after that.
Why was that? Were you just a mild-mannered child, or did he just command respect and you understood it?
He commanded the respect. I understood it. And then, he spanked me, but he also gave me a lesson behind it. It took a minute, but sometime after that, he took me into the place of work, which was the jail.
Right.
And, this was way before Scared Straight. And he wasn't necessarily trying to scare me or have somebody to yell at me. But he showed me where he worked. And he just was like, look, this is where you're going to be if you keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I loved him for that. Of course, at the time I didn't. But, as I got older and older, and, I just wanted to try to do what I could do to make him proud. I wasn't the perfect child, but I knew my limits. I knew what to do and what not to do.
So you said something interesting about you didn't appreciate it at the time. And that's a struggle for me, and where I was in my relationship with my father at the age that my oldest son is now. That's when I started trying to grow hair on my chest, right? Trying to test the limits and all of that. At what point did you realize, not even realize, at what point did you truly start to appreciate your father?
Man, probably sometime after I first got married.
Got it.
Because between the time I left the house and started living on my own, I wasn't thinking about lessons that, he was giving me, or he was trying to tell me about, just by taking care of yourself, cleaning up and what he used to do, subliminally, he was the type that, he told us what he wanted to do, but he had his ways. Like my father was the cook. My mom didn't cook any food in the house. We wouldn't even allow it because she was horrible. But my father, he could throw down. He was the youngest of all his siblings. And he told us, when he came up, his mom had him in the kitchen and he just learned stuff from his mom. And he would cook. And I can tell you for a fact, every weekend, we could hear him in the kitchen on Saturday, and he didn't even have to say nothing. He would stop. You could hear the pan stop sizzling, and breakfast was ready. And while you were sitting there eating, you can ask my brother. He started running down what we was going to do before you did anything that you thought you wanted to
pay
do.
your dues.
Yeah.
What was your eyes light up when you talk about him, right? So
I love him. I love him.
I
still
see the fond memories in it. What was his communication style?
He wasn't the greatest communicator. He showed you how he loved you, by making sure that, so like I give you an example, he cooked, and some of the stuff, he was from the country. I didn't really care for,
No possum?
Nah, no possum, squash, stewed tomatoes.
Oh man, that's the good stuff.
Nah.
That's stewed tomatoes. Man. I appreciate it later in my life.
We're talking about in the late 90s, early mid 90s, liver.
I've never had liver in my life. Well, I grew up vegetarian.
Okay.
And that's not something that I adopted once I got out the house. It just, I don't get it. It doesn't sound pleasant.
Well, most families from the South, they ain't know nothing about no vegetarian. You grew up on what you had, and you got what you got from your generations of oppressions, segregation, and you got what you got because Black families didn't have the opportunity to make some of those types of decisions like we do now. Like I tried to raise my youngest son to be vegan. He's 15 now. And the first time he got to hold some bacon, that was it. It was over. It's a wrap, But let's say he cooked liver.
Okay.
And I hated it.
Yeah.
He would keep cooking it, but he would do it in different ways to see if I like it differently. Yeah. And this one time, stroke of genius, I didn't know anything about it. He cooked it and he put it in the oven with a slice of bacon on it. He knew we loved bacon.
Yeah.
And the bacon crisped up in the oven and the bacon grease came down on top of the liver and it made it palatable. It made it amazing, actually.
Hold on. If you're on audio only, you got to jump over to YouTube because you got to see the facial expressions. You got to see the pure joy when this man said bacon sizzling and the grease came down.
Yeah,
grease came down upon it.
It coated the liver. And, that was his way of showing that, I know you don't like this, but this is something I think you need. I want to make sure you're nourished and you have something sufficient instead of junk food, or, some McDonald's or whatever fast food that you wanted. So that's how he communicated,
What is your most prominent trait that you attribute to him, that you got from him?
Integrity.
Say more.
Yeah. And I try to teach this to my sons in different various lessons. And I'm not saying I've never lied or never been in a situation where I didn't tell the truth.
Right.
But over the years, as you get older, you become wiser. And throughout my whole career where I worked, that was something that, they kind of instilled, but I already had it,
Right.
I just don't ever want to live my life in such that I can't communicate about it or any part about it. Of course, I made some mistakes in relationships and business at work, but over the course of my life, the biggest lesson, he taught is integrity, being able to, do the right thing when ain't nobody looking. And I try to teach that to especially right now, I got a 22-year-old. And he lost a job over the summer. And it was because he was getting to work. He wasn't staying the duration. And I said, what do you expect? What did you expect? Because he was upset. He was in tears. And I said, hey, man, you got to clean that up. You got to, ain't no use to crying about it. You made this decision to do what you did. You didn't, that's the first, any job will let you go for
Time.
misrepresenting your time.
For
and
sure.
I said, even being there from 9 to 5 and then being on your phone is a time infraction. If you're doing personal stuff at work, that's something that you can get fired for.
Sure.
And I just try to make sure we talked about that. Now he likes to work.
Yeah.
He's in school. His main objective is getting a job and making money. I love that about him.
Right.
That's I think that trait he got from me, because I don't want to be sitting around not doing anything. I want to make money. I want him to be able to be self-sufficient as well. So, with his new job, we talked about the mistakes that he made on his old job. And now these are lessons that he's learning. He has to learn those. You can't heal without pain.
Sure.
You got to go through some pain so you can really heal.
Really interesting point I want to come back to on that, about having to go through pain. Your eyes light up when you talk about your boys too.
Yeah.
Is it just the two sons you have?
2 sons.
And they're 15 and 22?
15 and 22.
What did they mean to you?
Everything, two separate families. I was married. I've been married. This is my 3rd time.
Okay.
It's my last time.
Right.
My wife, she doesn't realize she's never going anywhere. She's done.
Yeah.
I was young in my first marriage. I was middle-aged in my second marriage. They didn't work out. I have 2 sons from those 2 relationships. And what's going on right now in my son's lives, they are 7 years apart. And what I love about them is that they didn't grow up together, but now they communicate without me. They text, talk, tell jokes. Like I said, when the last time I saw you, one of them texted me to tell on the older one about drinking. And I had to remind him that his brother is old enough to drink.
Right.
And he was like, oh.
Did you facilitate that process? Is that something that they both got from you, from your interaction with them, that they picked up and that kind of nurtured that relationship between the two of them?
I had to have them understand that they both came from me. I didn't name either one of them after me, but what I did do that I thought was poignant is their middle names are my first name. Both of them have the same middle name. And somewhere down the line, the youngest's mom, she made sure that she tried to interact with the oldest boy. And, I make sure that they communicate when I can. I FaceTime them both at the same time. I talk to them separately, but, just trying to make sure that I keep in their lives, because they're in Maryland, in the Washington, D.C. area. One is at North Carolina, but he lives in Maryland.
Okay.
And the youngest one lives in Maryland. So I just try to make sure, when I can, I keep them together as best I can. But it's just organically lately that they're calling me, talking about stuff that they had been talking about on their own. And I love it. It's a blessing. That's one of the things I couldn't have even, I could have forced them or tried to force them, but they've been doing it on their own organically, just communicating and keeping up, because they know that they got me. Right. I mean, I'm their only father. There's the only father they're going to ever have. So I love that piece about them.
You mentioned as you were introducing your fatherhood story about the separation of your mother and your birth father around the age of 4. What do you remember about that time? And do you think that any of that, what you saw then, contributed to less than successful marriages early on? Or was it is there any correlation between what you saw in your home and your first couple of marriages? Or
so my mom and dad were never married. They were in a relationship that she thought, and he was married.
Oh.
So she found out later after she got pregnant and with me, and that's when the wheels fell off.
Gotcha.
So I don't think that that situation, I don't remember much about that situation. Okay. I'm going to tell you why. Because my mom, like I said, she's from the South. She moved from North Carolina to D.C., the big city.
Sure.
She wanted to make money. She didn't want to pick tobacco or deal with hogs. So she left, and she wanted to move And she started working at Georgetown University Hospital.
Okay.
And when she got pregnant, she had to, back then in the 70s, 1970, you couldn't be unmarried and be pregnant and working at a hospital like
Oh, wow.
that. Yeah, it's crazy, right? But
Yeah.
those was the times. It's different. And I think she had a lot of pain and regret over the fact that she thought she had a relationship with the man that she's expressed that was the love of her life. And the fact that she had to make some changes and go, reposition herself to figure out how she was going to live with a unwed and, unmarried and pregnant. And she had to leave her job. So I can imagine it being very painful.
Sure.
But she overcame and ended up meeting my stepfather. And what's funny is he's gonna be mad if I say this, but wow, as an only child at that point, I used to have an imaginary friend, and I would talk to him, and they named my brother after my imaginary friend. Yes.
Because of how much you talked about this person?
Or, I would probably be in my room talking to my imaginary friend.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So, yeah, he's going to be upset about that, but it's all right. It's love.
Was there any traits in your father, not birth, but the father that was present in your life that you recognize and you don't necessarily want to repeat? Any characteristics, anything like that?
I do imitate him. I mean, I don't believe that I had the best imitation. My brother, I mean, when I look at him and how he acts and how he makes decisions, they are, I mean, just exactly.
Yeah.
I get like, wow, you acting just like that. You're like, you do just like that. My father, he was a people person.
Okay.
He would give his last. He would cook for whoever needed it. If you needed something, he was the type of person, he would try to work it out. If he didn't have it, or if he had it, he would give it.
Yeah.
I don't have any memories that I can't say, that I, disliked about my stepfather or my father that raised me.
Right.
So, it's really, really, he was a good person. And I know he wasn't perfect. He worked at the jail. He explained to me, that's a mental thing in itself, being that when you go to work every day, you're locked up just like them, the people that you're supposed to be guarding.
Yeah.
So dealing with that.
Whoa. I just picked up on what you said.
Yeah.
You're in the environment too.
Yeah.
Though you appear to be an authority.
But your locked
freedom
up.
Is wow.
Yeah. They lock the doors on everyone.
Wow.
So no one can escape.
Wow.
So, you had the ability to get off when your shift was over, but during your shift, you dealt with a lot of, I'm sure, ignorance, violence. One day I can remember us having one car, and like I said, they work shift work. And one day we go drop him off, and they open the door of the jail and cloud of smoke come out. And I'm like, Mom, is Dad gonna be all right? Because they in there burning stuff up or doing whatever was going on at the time. I mean, this is DC jail, it's in Washington, DC. So they had some hardened criminals in there.
Yeah. I think I know the answer, which is not a good way to lead a question.
Go ahead.
Especially in a conversation like this. Did he talk about his experiences at work, or did he kind of just compress them?
Oh, no, he didn't. He didn't really talk about them. I mean, outside of the time that he expressed to me about, if I was decided to be disrespectful, to the teachers and, or anybody as an adult, outside of that time, he really didn't talk about it. Okay. I can for sure remember him and some of his friends. They drank, just to, ease the pain. They could have did some other things, but that was their outlet. I can remember him saying that when they got off work, they would go get a drink so that they could, wash off or just maybe forget about some of the things that they was dealing with in there. But I can't really say that I had, he wasn't perfect. I don't want you to
Yeah,
think
yeah.
I'm painting this perfect
No.
picture.
Nor is
He
this
wasn't
a dad bashing platform. We don't
right,
do that here.
right. Nor that he was a perfect communicator. He
Right.
communicated in different ways.
Yeah.
And, he was home, he was cooking, he was instilling us in lessons of how to take care of ourselves with respect to, just taking care of the home,
Yeah.
doing the lawn, cleaning up or cleaning up our area and protecting what we had,
Sure. So part of this podcast journey for me is born out of an inability to, I shouldn't say inability because I know how to do it, but for whatever reason, I don't always communicate well with my son
Mm-hmm.
or at the right time. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see things developing and I'll hesitate. Right. And it caused me to think back and reassess my relationship with my father. And a couple episodes ago, we had a conversation about our perspective on our relationship. Right. It was
Mm-hmm.
very healing, very cleansing. And I got a better perspective of what he was dealing with at that time.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, let me back up. What is your communication like with your sons? I guess, how has it evolved over time? Has it always been great? Was there points in your life where you felt like maybe you weren't communicating effectively? How did you work through it? Because I'm really struggling with that, and it scares me having a teenage son. You
Okay.
have a teenage son. You have a son that's
Yeah.
that's evolved into manhood, and that phase, that 15 to 22 phase is
Mm-hmm.
where I had the most problems with my dad.
Okay.
So you have a vantage point of both
Yeah.
places in time at once.
Okay. So
help me out with that.
So first about the way you felt or the timing. I don't have no timing. I don't even care. As a father, I got to get across my perspective no matter what, because time is more valuable than money.
Right.
And what's left unsaid is unfortunate. So I don't care. I don't care how they feel. I don't care what they're going through. I do try to understand, and maybe if I tell them or talk to them about certain things that I've gone through, it resonates.
Sure.
My relationship with them is a little different, I think, because you see, you're here, you're in the house with your sons,
and my father was too. But and that's the thing, and I pushed them away.
Yeah,
and I couldn't figure that out. Go ahead.
Because I had two relationships that didn't work out. I lived with my sons, both of them at an early age, and then sort of towards the middle part of their lives, or the those times where I wasn't there, with respect to being able to see them on a regular basis. It was huge for me to make the decision to leave the DMV and move to the DFW.
Yeah.
That was a huge part with me. And my youngest son lived here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area with me.
What drove the decision?
It was just opportunity.
Okay.
When you start paying child support, that drives decision making. Of course, I'm sure all fathers out there resonate with that. And I was paying a lot of child support for one child at the time.
Did that impact your relationship with the child at any point?
It did. Like, we didn't have a bad relationship, but I wasn't able to be there for certain moments that I think I should.
Yeah.
And not until, I say, somewhere between 10 and 20, those 10 years, I lost a lot. And because of the type of relationship his mom and I had, it just, it warranted my distance.
Yeah.
Because she did some things that I felt that was unspeakable, as I'm not a drug user. I work every day. I try to do the best I can to make sure I was in his life. But, when the oldest's mom, she called the police on me.
Wow.
And, she made some false allegations, and that could have went in a totally different direction.
Yeah.
And, That's the reason why I had to explain to him, because he wanted to, we were having a communication problem.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, what's going on? I'm trying to reach out to you. I'm trying to figure out where you are, somewhere between 10 and say 15, 16, 17 got a little bit better. He graduates from high school.
Yeah.
18, he's off to college. I try to, make sure I let him know your phone works, my phone works. You just call me. I'm going to be there. I'm calling to check on you.
Right.
I'm texting and I'm not getting a response, or I'll call you back and I wasn't feeling it, and that's where I got to the point where we had to have this man-to-man conversation, because at this point he's 21.
Yeah.
And I had a very blunt conversation with him, and I said, look, man, I need you to include me in what you got going on. You can't call me at 5:00 on Friday evening saying you got a problem.
Yeah.
Because even if I can, I'm not going to solve it, because I see that as a form of disrespect.
But even that approach is very telling of your character, because that's a very respectable way to approach the situation.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, did resentment play any part in it? But I don't even want to ask that now, because of how you just characterized the way you reached out to your son.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm here for you.
Yeah.
I want to be in your life.
Yeah.
Let me help you.
So let me tell you how that conversation, that harsh conversation, because I talked to him like a grown man.
Sure.
Would talk to another grown man. It had some filth in there. And I just gave him the bare brunt. If you don't include me, I'm not going to care. You got to let me in. And since that day, since that time, he came out and spent the holidays with us. Since that time, our communication just went through the roof, because he knew, I was pouring out my heart, and he knew that I cared. He saw it. And it's been wonderful. But as far as, trying to decide whether it's appropriate or whether I'm hurting the world ain't gonna protect your feelings. I gotta toughen you up before you leave this house, or before you get out there. And you can't baby the conversations. Your son Donovan is how?
14.
This is the time.
Yeah.
Because,
and I think I'm late, quite honestly.
No,
you're not. Things.
You're not late. You're not. If I can still instill, and like I said, with his job situation, he was crying, he was upset. I'm like, hey man, hold on, stop crying.
Yeah.
You caused that.
Your sons grew up in different homes. They were connected to you. It's very clear that you made them aware that you wanted to be in their lives and you were very involved.
Yeah.
Are there characteristics that you see in your younger one that the older one demonstrated, and it's like, I gotta get that? Or is it just completely different?
Totally different.
Reset.
Totally different. The youngest one, he's right there with Donovan. Mm. They're in another thing, like nothing bothers him. Like, he was here over the summer, and my wife is more harder on him than I am, because I want to enjoy the time with him. But, sometimes you got to put in conditions and controls. And when you don't do what you're supposed to do, you got to, we had him picking up twigs, every twig.
Bill's character.
In the flower bed.
Yeah.
Not just the big ones, the little ones. And I was just like, come on now. Yeah. Privately, I said it to her, but
it was gumballs for me. We had a gumball tree in the front.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My dad had us rigging the gumball.
So, but that Bill's character, but I can't, when I see it, his thing is, all right.
Yeah.
He don't get mad. He don't fuss. He goes and does whatever we're asking him to do. He's a good boy. Good. He likes that. He's a TikToker.
Oh, who is he?
Like, I want to say he got somewhere between 50,000 and 50,000 followers.
So let me ask you this: you made a comment that you want to enjoy the time because it's limited, right?
Yeah.
He's with you for a period of time. You want to maximize the fun, which makes sense.
Yeah.
The episode before this one, part of my conversation with myself that I share with the world, but I don't have a guest, is the struggle with the friend to the authoritarian or the authoritative role in your child's life. And I find myself sometimes being more of a friend in certain moments, to be the cool dad.
Yeah.
Other times I find myself being more authoritative. And what stemmed that is my dad and I were reviewing some of the quotes that he used to lay on me growing up, right? And one that was very memorable to me, and we never had a conversation about it until the last episode, a couple episodes ago now. He used to tell me, son, I'm your father, I'm not your friend.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. Take that thing out of there. No friendships.
Yeah.
And
but like, do you even struggle? But is it a struggle for you because of the limited time that you get with your son, or is it
no, it's not no struggle.
Okay.
It's no struggle. It's just hard to discipline, all the time. Now we got rules that we have that he has to do. Like it's me and my wife. We don't have no slobs in the house. You got to clean up behind yourself.
Yeah, for sure.
We're not gonna, as my son, my 15-year-old is 6'4". He's taller than me. He wears a 14 shoe. You're going to have to clean yourself. You got to, you're going to have to clean your space. We're not going to, put too many constraints on you, but, he has rules. Like I said, my wife is more of a disciplinarian than I am, and I think that stems from the fact that I just, I want to hug and love and, I don't necessarily want to be his friend. He knows that, but I think you should definitely take that friend piece out. I'll give you an example. My 22-year-old, I like when they call me POP. That's what he calls me, POP. But when we talk, he felt so comfortable at one point. He was like, bruh. I said, man, I'm not your bruh. I'm not your friend. I'm good with POP, Pop.
Yeah.
Everybody has different affirmations that they call their father. But, he got so comfortable a little bit.
Yeah.
I always have to reel him back in. And you can't be his friend. I mean, you love him, but you can't be his friend. You got lessons that you got to show him.
Yeah.
Because I think about, the protection that I provide inside the walls and what we have to deal with as young Black men outside the walls, even when he goes to school, goes to work. You have to prepare him with critical thinking. You have to prepare him with patience to have that critical thought. You have to prepare him not to retaliate because, I've been in those situations at work and I've retaliated and I got in trouble when the aggression was pointed to me. So, it's so complex. Like we fail sometimes. And I'm not saying that I'm not guilty, but some of the, I think I saw something where a guy was talking about, his grandfather walked to school. His father caught the bus. When he came up, he got a car.
Right.
And he gave his son a Mercedes. He gave his son's son is going to probably have a Tesla.
Yeah.
But the struggle is going to go back in circles because we're not teaching the boys to be able to fend for themselves. We're giving them stuff. So I want to make sure I'm giving them not something, materialistic, but something that they can use when I'm gone. These lessons, like the lessons I learned by looking at my father, we didn't have a whole bunch of conversations and we didn't have a whole bunch. I just looked at how he reacted. And that's how I tried to be as a man,
How do you strike the balance between allowing them to learn and setting them up for success? Because I do believe that every generation should have an advantage over the last, right? We should be preparing them. We should be positioning them for success, right? We shouldn't give them the same trauma, the same financial struggles. If that was the case, if that was the story, we shouldn't be passing that along. One of the things that I struggle with and had a conversation with my father about is, were there things that he watched me, was he watching the train wreck and why didn't he stop it? You get what I'm saying? Like he saw things where I put myself in a situation and it yielded a struggle for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to do that if I seek this counsel, but I didn't. He saw it.
Right.
How much of your approach is because I struggle, you need to struggle too? or are you kind of translating your struggles into lessons to help them avoid the struggles?
Okay, so I didn't grow up with any wealth.
Sure.
Or I don't have
Nor
any
I.
generational wealth that was passed.
Nor I.
Now, when I say wealth, I'm saying financial.
Sure.
But mental.
Even the literacy, in my case.
Hey, well, mental wealth.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a millionaire.
Right.
I'm in the mental wealth is something that nobody else can take from me.
Sure.
So, and I guess that's a case by case basis. If a child exudes the critical thinking at an early age that they need to be able to sustain themselves out here in these streets, I can see an affording, and I'm not even talking about just, setting them up and letting them know. That's the one thing,
Right.
we talk about that and we try to show them that. When you see the kids nowadays, they wear like Hermes belts to prom, and they're driving Maybachs, and that to me is a farce. Okay, if you're providing extra stuff because they're doing well in school, to me that's not the right way to position them, because their expectation levels are going to be somewhere that they shouldn't be. You're supposed to get straight A's in school, if that's the case,
Well, so if we could just pause right there, because what's so interesting to me is, let me back up. Did your boys have an opportunity to have a relationship with your father?
No. No.
I never knew a grandfather either.
No.
But what I find extremely interesting is that things that were absolutely unacceptable for me as a child in my parents' house are more than acceptable for my kids, their grandkids, right? My mom thinks that every child needs an iPod or an iPad or something, right? That wasn't the case. And I asked my dad, at what point do grandparents flip the switch where the rules change, right?
You don't know?
Well, here's what I wanted your perspective too. And he said this to me, which made a whole lot of sense. He said, when you evaluate how you did the first time around and you identify the regrets where you made mistakes with your children.
Oh, okay.
You kind of want to correct it in that next generation.
You can't correct generational things. Like, I don't believe that.
Really?
No. I think that the reason why the relationship changes, because this happens to everybody.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Everybody happened. Their parents were strict. They have children, and they're not strict anymore. Yeah. You know what the real reason to me is the level of their responsibility is lessened. They don't have the same responsibility to make sure that you do the right thing, you get your schoolwork out. They have a limited time to, sometimes, I'm not saying in general, I'm just speaking in general, their time with your children is limited.
Yeah.
In the fact that maybe y'all not living in the same city, or also with the fact that they're getting older and you done wore them out already. So now it's just like a old belt. It's loose. It ain't tight like it used to be. If you keep pulling on leather, it's going to stretch.
Yeah.
And they've been stretched. And now it's just like, oh, let's make sure the babies have all the things that they want, because, they were tight, when you were younger, and they don't have the same level of responsibility. I mean, they have a responsibility to love them and help, mentor them as their grandparents, but they're not their kids.
Yeah. My research continues.
Yes, keep researching it, because I try to break things down to the smallest, and everybody doesn't do that, but I just try. I have to do that so that I can comprehend and understand.
All right, so hoping that this doesn't take a left. It's not going to.
No,
that was just for dramatic effect. I was looking at the camera and everything. Anyway, but you said you don't think you can change or cure generational things.
No, don't misquote that.
Okay. Clear me up.
I don't think that we should, number one, I mean, not to say in a sense, we should be trying to make situations every situation, I guess it's a slippery slope because everybody's going to take it differently. But, like I said, you cannot heal or you can't learn a lesson without some pain. And if you don't provide those speed bumps, those hurdles, then how are they going to jump?
Gotcha.
Like I think it's a thing. Like we had the shooting at the school recently, and I saw it was a fight. I immediately went back to Friday. Back in the day, what you did? You got in a fight, you got your butt whooped. Either you went back at it, but you lived. Ain't nobody was pulling out no guns.
Yeah.
But kids don't know how to. They don't get that lesson. They don't get that situation now. Because we're so laxed about how we treat our children across the board. How we want them to have the niceties that white families have been afforded all these years as Black families. I think we let our foot off the gas, and I don't think that's the most perfect thing. I would have loved to have some of those niceties, but it made me stronger, I believe, in all my dealings, even the ones that didn't work out. I talk with my friends sometimes, we talk about how the kids didn't do what we did. We had, we might have had $10, but we all chipped in. We all was real friends.
$10 was the whole night.
Man, $10 was $3 or something in the gas tank. $4 to get something to eat.
Yes, sir.
And a couple of dollars to get something to drink. We all looked out for each other. And nowadays, it ain't there's no real relationships, no real connections like that, especially with social media.
I don't think they have the conditions don't favor it, right? Social media was before COVID.
Yeah.
COVID just exacerbated the conditions already. And now they really don't have any, I shouldn't say they don't have any social skills, but I think they're slower to develop because they're not constantly in situations where they have to use social skills and face-to-face interaction.
Yeah.
We go back to something. You mentioned that your youngest son is kind of goes with the wind, right?
Yeah.
And not that he is easily influenced, anything like that, but nothing's a big deal to him.
Yeah, nothing affects him.
Nothing affects him.
Yeah.
Make sure, I don't want to misquote you.
Yeah, nothing affects him like, when you want to discipline a child or anything like that, he doesn't show the emotion of being upset.
Yeah.
And he just all right. That's his response, and now I don't know if that's a fail safe for him so that he manages his expectations, but he knows mine. So
the reason why I wanted to kind of circle back to that is because you mentioned the shooting, right? And we had conversations with our kids about, are you okay? Have you processed it? And they're like, shoulder shrugs. For those that don't audio, shoulder shrugs.
Yeah.
We don't know. Does any of that scare you about your son? Because it gave me pause, honestly, that like, are they so desensitized that to their detriment, where if it was in their school, how would they react? That kind of thing. That they don't have street smarts because there's no reason to be outside anymore. They're not in these situations where they're developing character through interactions and things going wrong on a smaller scale. So it's kind of like, boom, catastrophe. What do you do? Right? That kind of makes me nervous about my kids.
I get a little nervous because we was talking about, he does YouTube stuff and he has a little YouTube channel he just created. He's in high school now. This is the first year he's actually in the school.
Right.
So his ninth grade year, he was at home Zooming, and now he's in the school. He's very likable. He's a very handsome young man. And he does this thing where he goes and he's asking all these cockamamie questions.
Right.
And some of them are funny and I have to, laugh behind his back. But I had to make sure that I talked to him about, watch what you're asking people, what type of jokes or questions you're asking people, because kids are so sensitive nowadays, and that could turn into something else. And, my biggest thing is, let's keep that same energy about your schoolwork.
Sure.
You're around here asking 50 million questions and putting together a whole YouTube channel to, because he's in the audio video program at the high school that he's in. But this ain't got nothing to do with schoolwork. This is him in the cafeteria asking crazy questions and getting crazy responses. And I just want to make sure I keep him, grounded about what he's doing. You can't just ask everybody everything.
Yeah.
And that probably be the main thing that I'd be worried about, especially in these years, because it's just not the same as what we went through. But I fully, when you pray about something, you can't worry.
Right.
I pray about it, and I know he's gonna be good. I just want to be there when he reaches his greatness, because I know he's gonna do something great. He's got an engineering mind. He wants to be in audio, video, television, some form of fashion. And we'll look back at these videos, and I also had to say, these things live forever. And I said, you got to watch what you're putting out there.
Yeah.
So, I know this is his time. This is how he has to process it. I just got to sit back and make sure I pay attention, and help maybe put some polls in place when I see something going to the left or to the right,
Gotcha. All right, we're going to ease it up a little bit. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and then we'll wrap up. What's one conversation that you wish you had sooner with your boys, either one of them or both?
Just the ability to let them know that when I wasn't there in the house with them, I was still there, and that's the one conversation that I did have with my oldest son. My youngest son, he's a little different, when my oldest son and his mom split, we didn't have the ability to FaceTime and all that,
Gotcha.
Not that it takes a precedent, but it's different, With my youngest son, we FaceTime as much as possible. I try to check in on him. I try to check his school account just to see how he's doing. Then I ask him,
Sure.
It's just a different level of communication that he's exposed to, just like he don't even have to go anywhere. He don't, it's the thing about when I was 16, I wanted to drive. I had to drive. I wasn't getting no car, no time soon, but I had to get my license.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you get everything at the door.
Car sitting outside.
You don't even want to drive.
Yeah.
You don't even have to, it's not a thing. And you can still communicate through the video games, through the phone, and through the computer. And it's just, just to let them know both. My biggest thing is just to make sure, and I think I've achieved those things, especially with respect to them understanding that they are brothers.
Yeah.
They didn't grow up in the same household, but they have a relationship outside of me forcing them two together. You know?
Question number 2 of 3. What conversation do you wish you had with your father that you think would have changed the course of your life?
Probably, and he probably wasn't able to have that conversation with me. It's of course financial.
Yeah.
The finance question. And I want to think. I think credit cards, they came back in the 87, or the ability to obtain a credit card. So back when I got to college, 88, 89.
You were prime picking.
Yeah. But my father didn't, I think our first home that he purchased was built in the 50s or something.
Yeah.
And he purchased it, and the interest rate back then in the Reagan era was bananas.
Yeah.
It's like 19%. But because we had lived in an apartment, this was his ability to take us in a different direction, to get us out of a, commingled living situation and be in our own home. That was the American dream, of course.
And those rates were sometimes different for us.
Yeah, of course. But it was still high for everyone.
Yeah.
I think, 17, 19% on a mortgage, which is crazy.
That's ridiculous.
But having the ability to have a credit talk about credit, but I don't think he was able to explain that to me. But what he did show me was how to make sure that I pay my bills.
Sure.
And not have anybody looking for me. He showed me how to, feed my family. teach lessons and chores and, things that young people don't have today. They're slobs. They don't respect anything. You give them something. And that's the whole real reason why about the generational wealth thing. You work hard, and that's where I kind of, if I can create it, I guess I'd like to create generational wealth. I don't misunderstand me on that. But, you work hard to get to that point, and then you give it, and then they don't appreciate it and they squander it.
Yeah.
You can't tell what they're going to do with it, but if they don't take the effort to take that and make something out of themselves or make it grow, then what did you do? If they don't appreciate it, and if you didn't teach them how to appreciate the little, then what you think they're going to do when they get this wealth that you've amassed?
That's the part. What ownership do we have in that process of making sure that we're giving them the tools and making sure they understand value?
Right.
Like the saying, the price of everything and the value of nothing. Right.
When you're doing all that you do with your businesses, the best thing per me that I believe, if I had any advice, is to show them exactly what you're doing, how much does it cost to do what I'm doing. Talk to them about what you do, because we still work 9 to 5s and we both have businesses. Talk to them about, hey, this is what I got to do to make this money, but this is what I got to do to make that type of money. And you can decide what it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to, we don't put any polls in place either, any controls to say, hey, well, look, you can ready to be an adult.
Yeah.
What's your plan? See, you got 40, he's 14 now. What's your plan?
Yeah.
And that's what my communication with my 15-year-olds. What's your plan?
Yeah.
I said, because you can't, whatever you want to do, you got to get a high school diploma. You gotta finish, period. I tell my 22-year-old, whatever you want to do work-wise and while you're in college, okay. Don't leave that school without a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, you done went there to get it. You need to finish. Long as you decide that, long as you finish, you'll be better than me.
Yeah.
So I just try to give them real talk, and I don't spare you can't spare feelings, because you got so many people out here that's not going to care about their feelings. The police, people that don't like the color of you, which is crazy, but you want to teach them compassion, have compassion for your next man. Those are the things all those things that I talked about, what I got from my father, I try to pour that in my business.
Gotcha. Final question. And it's how I like to end conversations with guests, right? It's a segment I call Father to Father.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, I seek advice from my conversation counterpart.
Okay.
About what they would tell me in terms of what advice they would give me at this stage of my life. And I'm very interested in your perspective, again, because you have the 15 and you have the 22.
Mm-hmm.
What words of wisdom can you give me, father to father, at this stage?
Just like I said, man, don't spare their feelings.
Wow.
Let it go. You can't spare their feelings. And you just have to, be understanding, of course, but help them understand the climate of the world.
Sure.
You see that all the time. You can't, I'm an old man. I can watch TV. I pay for it. I'm going to watch it.
Right.
But, of course, you don't want to shield them from everything. But, I'll give you an example of something that was impressed upon me, and I didn't even know it. My father used to watch world news. We couldn't do nothing. We had one TV in the house.
Right.
They had no TV in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And he would watch world news with Tom Brokaw. And either you sat there and watched it with him until he decided he didn't want to watch the TV anymore. And I think I've taken a liking to world news as well.
Yeah.
Not that, it's super important to me, but I like to understand the climate of where we are in America as it relates to other countries. Sure. I like to travel to other countries as well too. Based on my job, I which is funny, I work with a security clearance, so I have to do certain things to travel out of the country, like check the State Department's website to see what the clearance of the government is those things kind of interest me.
Right.
You know, you do what you do with your podcast, your business, your job. They're looking.
Yeah.
They're looking.
Yeah.
You know, I know, you know, moms are for feelings, dad for lessons. You know, you can't spare his feelings. You want to also, you know, just interject them into what you do every day, your world, you know, and talk to him whether you want to talk or not.
Yeah.
He's going to remember these.
Wait, back up. Talk to him. You definitely identified a struggle for me.
Yeah.
I'm in my head too much about, does he want to hear from me? Does he want to be around me? Because of my history. Because at that stage, that's what I was doing.
You're just too intelligent. I'm hood.
If only.
Yeah.
if only that was partially true.
You gotta communicate with them on whatever level it has to be.
Yeah.
Like I said, you know, you can love them, but you can't be their friend. You have to make sure that they get their knee scraped.
Sure.
It has to happen.
Yeah.
It has to happen. You gotta slap the hand. Somebody else is gonna do it.
Yeah.
Better you than them.
Yeah.
You know, so that it won't be a shock. You know, that's why the generations are so different. You know, I got the young kids coming up on my job, been there 18 years next March. And they're expecting the pay that I've amassed in 18 years on day 2.
Yeah.
You know, that's their level of expectations.
I get it.
And you know, I don't sugarcoat with my boys. And I don't break them down, but you can't just, you know, not give them some tough love in your words, you know, and the experiences that you share with them. You have to talk about the those gray areas that most people don't want to.
Yeah.
And just take the feeling. Stop caring about what they feel. Hey,
pump your feelings, kid.
Yeah, pump them brakes. Yeah.
Javan, it has been an absolute pleasure. I mean, there's so much that we didn't get to. I'm hoping that you'll consider returning to the podcast.
Oh, definitely.
We didn't even get to business, right?
Yeah, we got to do a whole nother second on that.
And there's a dynamic, you know, you're in business, your brother's in business.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that was influenced by what you guys saw in the house, you know, with your father. A bunch of things we didn't get to, and I don't want to start another conversation because we'll have to do part 2.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you. You are the inaugural in-studio guest.
What's up?
Right?
Thank you.
In-studio guest, and I appreciate it. I hope you guys have enjoyed the conversation too. If you're still listening at this point, you owe it to yourself to subscribe to the content. You owe it to yourself to leave some comments, because I'm sure there was something that resonated with you that you didn't agree with, because we didn't agree with each other all throughout the conversation. And that's the point of having these conversations. These are not interviews. This is truly about gaining perspective and helping others through telling of the fatherhood journey. If you're on an audio platform, please follow. Javan, any closing words? You have an Instagram or anything you want to shout out?
Well, I'm on Instagram for my business, which is The Razor's Cut. And I just want to shout out my lovely wife for allowing me to take some time away from our relationship to come down and talk about, you know, personal things that I feel, you know, real serious about. And thank you for allowing me to come and be on your show, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. We appreciate you guys. God bless. Peace. The Dear Son podcast is produced by D. John's Live Studios. All rights reserved.